Hey, welcome, we did doing it backwards today. We, oh man, I didn't even get the thing up. We almost ran out of time, and that was the problem. Is I don't want to run out of time. But welcome everybody to the Indie Pod Daily, where we are doing Training Thursday with a hot seat here with Jeni, Wren, Stottrup, and myself, going over her podcasting efforts in the podcasting world, and I will be giving my absolute best effort to help her increase her audience growth and all those stats and figures. And my brain is like mush right now, so this should be fun. I think that makes two of us. What do you say there, Jeni? Is that two of us too much brains?
Oh, totally. I mean, like I was sitting there like folding laundry. You're like, where are you? And I'm like, sorry guys.
It's all right. We're here now, and we're going to be looking in depth to your podcasting. Oh, I know. Look, if somebody was judging my stuff and like trying to but you don't know what you don't know, right?
I'm 100% on this. Like, I'm speaking of like, I think this is actually a great time for me because I just finished that like 8-week series, 9-week, and then I've been doing a lot of conferences, and there's this sound, but there's it's just my internet, folks, don't worry. But I think that it's a really good time for me because I'm working on something new and I want to know what's not working, and we have to, and one of the pieces that I'm going to do for that is like an RX. Like, we need to be looking into what we're not doing if we want to be doing what we want to be doing. So bring on the burn.
All right, well, yes, right. This is the training room. We're gonna pump you up.
Training room.
I need to get some sound effects for these days, because like today's training.
Number
Thursday.
one, water.
So guzzling water. Go.
Yeah, training.
Yeah. Oh, what? Like beat up the punching bag there.
Oh, actually, maybe not that one. That one. Okay, I was like, maybe not the whip. I'm like, I just gotta not use the whip.
No. It's
this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like pump. Oh no, like if you're doing the I took kickboxing in college. Underhooks. Yeah.
So, all right, before I get into that, this episode of the Indie Pod Daily is brought to you by Indie Pod University. You get over 100 plus hours and growing of podcasting resource videos for you and your podcast efforts. Go to indiepoduniversity.com now with a free 7-day trial when you sign up. So we are going to talk about Gritty Birds. So I just typed in Gritty Birds podcast into Google, and I got let me make it bigger here. I got Apple. I guess this is the website, right? GV.
Yeah, it's actually no, which is an issue, and this has been an issue. So like we can break it down. There are problems, and I'm aware of what they are, and this is a problem.
Yeah,
my website's not number one. I need to update this, and it's not correct. My friend Lael is how I discovered that. Yeah, my website's not even on the top. Which is really frustrating.
Instagram, Libsyn,
and
TuneIn,
GrittyBirds.com isn't even on there.
On Libsyn anymore?
No, I mean, look, you're searching. I'm saying that Gritty Birds, like the website that has like years of content, is not there, and that's definitely an issue. Right?
That is a big issue.
Right?
So you had a Kickstarter, right? Year 3.
I've done 2, but yeah, that was one of them. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's not like you can't sort of be found.
I can definitely be found, but you can't, as an editor, if you looked up Gritty Birds, you couldn't just automatically like see my website that has just so much information, GrittyBirds.com. And that is something that's frustrating. I run my own website. I did have someone who worked in business, and we separated ways because I took over, and yeah, you have Yaya podcast above GrittyBirds.com. What on earth?
So you have Gritty Bird. So if I go to GrittyBirdsPodcast.com,
just GrittyBirds.com.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to give you some things for that. But we gotta find out like why is this not coming? It literally. All right, what if I just type in Gritty Birds?
Let's see.
Facebook, Apple,
Still,
WordPress website.
Let me see. I don't know.
Open it up in a incognito. Gritty Birds. The Facebook page comes up first, at least. So you're getting.
Yeah, no, I'm looking on mine just to like check, and yeah, it doesn't show up at all. What on earth? This is helpful. I don't have an answer to this, to be honest. Like, I'm not a website developer,
and you don't have to, right? Like, I'm not looking to.
But I also work with clients, so it's helpful for me to be like, why isn't that happening? And I know for one on my website, there's like certain code that needs to be updated, and like I've done a lot with it, like trying to get SEO. So I'm not sure, and I feel like I'm getting close. One of the things I've wanted to do is get a new grant to get funding, and just with everything going on, like I'm one of the only people that's still like working. And while I'm in a rebuilding phase for sure, after kind of changing certain things, it's still enough that I'm not getting some of that side funding because it needs to go to places where people don't have work. But like, I don't have any extra income, like at all. So it's sort of one of those things where I'm like, okay, it's not the right year for some of those grants, because I really do want to like make this website be something completely different. I spent a lot of time on it, so it is interesting and very revealing to see that it's not even showing up in web searches.
So part of that might be because it's not secured. Google definitely places a huge emphasis on HTTPS versus HTTP. So like your WordPress site is secure, so you got like the little lock there in the top left-hand corner versus not having it secured at all.
But
I mean, obviously, it's hurting your SEO because, like, it's literally grittybirds.com.
But when you say not secured, because, like, what do you mean that it's not secured?
So HTTPS. See, like, if I type in grittybirds.com, I'm still not even getting your website.
But why am I not getting it secured? Because, like, I pay for hosting.
It's up to your host and domain.
I've been with GoDaddy because I've been with them for so long. Yeah, I was with GoDaddy before.
I would just
I just have so many friends who are like, oh, hey, them. Okay,
I'll give them a call and just say, hey, my site's not secure.
So number one, Jeni needs to call GoDaddy. I'm going to write on my whiteboard. Yep. So we figured out prescription number one. I'm going to write in my live comments.
Yeah, right in this.
Oh, hi, Larry.
Take notes.
Oh, can I?
Yeah, take notes.
Can I even? I can't comment on my own. So yeah, number one.
Wait, you can't
call your.
You can't. Oh, you were gonna write comments
in here. Yeah, I was like, out of here.
Facebook, you could write comments.
We're fine. Actually, yeah, we're fine. I actually can't find the feed right now. Is it on your page, or I was looking at Indie Podcasters?
It's in the Indie Pod group and the Independent Podcasters Facebook page. Which, if you are not following, you should totally join the group.
I didn't see it in the group, but yes, folks, go there because I was going to share it.
It's under announcements now. It should be right at the top.
Oh,
if you refresh.
Okay, here we are. I found me here on the conference because. Okay, I gotta make this silent though, really quick. There we go. So I'm sharing this, making this public. There we go. And then one, call GoDaddy, prescription number one.
Yes, and find out why your site is not secure and have them fix it. They should be able to fix it for you on the phone, I would think. You're using WordPress, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they should be totally able to fix that. It shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't even be a thing.
Cool. Yeah.
Maybe like a 20-minute phone call. Or actually, you might not even need a phone call. Just web chat with them.
I've tried to go through some of those, and it's often frustrating to go through chat because I've had issues with them in the past and had to like re-up certain things. And it's like there are certain pieces that have been frustrating. So I will call them because that's web chat helps, but it's always good to be not afraid to get on a phone call.
Yeah. So this will definitely get you on that path.
Let's get me back on the web.
Yeah, like this. Yeah, that'll help a lot. Just getting that secure should put you back in the. Now, are you using Google Search Console at all?
I mean, like I
Google Analytics.
Honestly, have a lot of room to grow on web because, like, while I started doing websites when I was 13, I definitely stopped doing them. And so when I brought somebody on, I brought on people to help me with my websites in the past. So there was like JennyWrenMusic.com at one point. We took that down because I hated the website. And the cost of making something really great was pretty far. And, you know, this is going back a decade ago. And now there's so many easier ways to build a website. So even this website, we built this starting 6 years ago. And because of that, like these days, I'd probably do it way simpler, right? Like if I was to have a new website, I wouldn't go through quite this route, but it's aged because of it. But there's all these little pieces that I just don't know. And like, I'll inform myself somewhat on it, but like website optimization is not my number one. Like not area of knowledge.
So there's other options other than using WordPress. I mean, you could opt to go Squarespace or something like that, or one of like GoDaddy's pre-built like.
Yeah, and at this point, I just plan on building this out because I figured out how to work with my site and I figured out how to do many things. At some point, I'm going to bring someone on. But like you said, what were the 2 things that you would add? Google optimization.
Oh, so Google Analytics and Google Search Console.
I will look at these. Are these
so
both?
If you want to write those in your notes.
Yeah, I have my text edit right open. Yeah, I'll add them in.
So that's that. I mean, that's good. So if I click on one of these, cool. We got it. We got the video here.
Yeah.
In YouTube, and there's me, and oh my man, this is so if you look at the background, like this is like you can actually see the insulation falling out of the walls that are now behind.
That was
me.
Only like a month ago, 2 months ago. It wasn't even that long ago.
Like, yeah, it was like 2 months ago.
So you got that clearness. Yeah. We've come a long way.
Oh yeah, and even my video is upgraded too. So all the dings for upgrades. But no, I love your notes. I think the notes are great. Now you aren't converting this though to a podcast episode. You're just using it as
not yet. So this is sort of a framework for where I'm starting to do more show notes. And this series I did not. And that was sort of one of the things that became a limitation. So Gritty Birds has always been the main show, and it's the only show I've owned. And where I'm kind of exploring is having a new show and having a new feed, which is sort of terrifying for me to go into because that's not something I've done before. But like, I think it wouldn't make sense for Gritty Birds to be there for the work that I'm doing and helping support other creators. And I have like a lot of ideas that I want to do with it, and I want to do it seasonally, but like where it's like 12. This is one of the reasons the streaming is an issue, right? For me, not for me. So but where it's like 12 episodes. Huh?
I don't think that's your internet.
It is my internet. I've literally I've 100% rewired my entire studio. I spent 3 months working on this show. Come on.
You're hearing it on your end. You know it's happening.
I have two different interfaces I've gone through this with. I've rewired the entire studio. I've done so many different beta tests with it, and it's 100% the internet. Like I've gone through it with different experts. I really believe it is the internet because I can hear it too. If I turn off my internet, if I give it 5 minutes, it goes away. I can record with hearing it even on my end with 0 issues. And like, I don't have any problems with like, if I'm an OBS, if I give it 5 minutes after I've turned off my internet, I don't have any problems. So like this is
sound reminds me
legit.
Of putting a cell phone up against speakers.
That's the internet. I'm telling you, that's what I'm talking about. It's an internet issue. It has to do with the signals. Because we're dealing with the signals with everything that I have in here. And the only way that we can fix that is with having that direct connection. But yeah, I've done months of testing on this because I was like, what can I do to get rid of it? And it also tends to spike somewhere in the middle, more toward the end. So yeah, I've definitely looked into what that issue is across a lot of different areas.
Your lights.
I've turned off lights too.
Are they dimmer switched?
They can be, but yeah, no, I've done everything.
No, because dimmer switches cause that issue. If your computer or anything that you know is plugged into the same breaker,
they're not plugged into the same thing. They're on separate breakers. No, I have my power conditioner, and then I have a separate. I have multiple different power sources so that nothing's getting outsourced. Yeah, I mean, I spent years in pro audio and like tried to figure out everything. That was actually one of the reasons I did the initial rewire of the studios, because I was like, this is fucking annoying me. Sorry, first way. This is really annoying me. Sorry, it was pissing me off, and I apologize. Bad children, I apologize.
Yeah, but they might be. Please.
Yeah.
Please.
I know I didn't. But yeah, that was kind of one of the things that sort of initially really pushed that off. Is I was like, this is really bugging me. So I went and I wanted to see if things were plugged to where things were plugged in. And so I went through and really dialed into where they were. I broke things into smaller chunks, like made sure that they weren't getting powered from power, and a couple of them were. So I was like, okay, this is going to be great. I have two different interfaces, so I went ahead and like checked those interfaces, because for a while we were like, is it the baby face? And it wasn't the baby face. And so we went through and just like broke it down and cut it off. And the one time I can get rid of the sound is if I turn off the internet. And even with the lights, I can do an OBS off internet with phone off recording with no issue, which is interesting. So yeah, I the only way that I could test that is if I had like the wall for sure, but I don't have that. So that's where we're at. Yeah. At least for streaming. So
are you using a laptop or are you using a desktop?
I use both. The desktop is always on offline when I'm doing streaming. So yeah.
I mean, do you have this issue with? Are you using a desktop right now? I assume.
Yeah, desktop. Yep. Mm-hmm. And this is my powerful machine.
But if you joined this chat from your laptop, you wouldn't have like. Can you plug this equipment into your laptop? Like using
it is plugged into my laptop.
Oh, it is plugged into your laptop. Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I have my baby face. Yeah, I plugged multiple different things. Like as a person who works in tech, like I've done all the tests. Yeah. So it's been an interesting issue to hit because I haven't heard it on other people's feeds. So it's been frustrating. But I've like met with like a ton of different people on this, and yeah, this is kind of where we're at with it as far as streaming. But for recording. Like if I'm just recording solo, no problems if the internet's off. It just the signal doesn't create an issue because there's no other signals. But I will take a look, on this guy because then it's just dark. But then that's a problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, no. I guess my question here. Oh, okay. So here's my question. On the back of you said you're using your desktop, right?
Not right now. No, I'm using my laptop.
So you're using your laptop. Okay. So I was thinking if it was your desktop, you could get like a longer antenna, like not a longer antenna, but like an antenna that is like separated from the back of. I'm assuming it's in the back of the computer.
I don't have an antenna. I have an extender. I'm actually really tired of talking about this issue. It's been something that's frustrating because it's one of those things where I'm aware of it and it feels sort of like every time, like there was a period where I was getting brought up where I was like, feed's not loud enough. This isn't there. And I'm just like, it got to a point where I was just like, is there a conversation we can have besides the fact that I'm having this feed issue? Because it really feels kind of like, of course, I've done the things that I need to be doing to address it, like extensively. And it does feel frustrating because like, I wish it wasn't happening, but like being somebody who works and finding solutions to problems, like, of course it drives me crazy, but like I have done everything I can possibly do. We've added a tether, we've added different things. I've done different runs. I've like, changed the setup. I've tried it on different computers. I've run it all. And so it's like, at this point, I'm just like, this is what it is. And I can't move. This is my home. I live in a small space and it's frustrating. So it definitely has its issues. Video, I see it more. I don't hear it much when I'm doing recordings, like audio recordings where I'm getting interviewed. If we turn off video, that ends up not being less of an issue. So like the less bandwidth, the less issues I have. The cool thing about like when you have that is, it really has to do with the bandwidth because I'm not by my house. I'm not close to the main router.
Facebook at all. Night, and I don't recall doing it while we were on Facebook.
But I've also so this is the other thing. I notice it more on StreamYard. I notice it more when it's on like a so if it's off, if it's on like an app, even like Zoom, it's better. But I've noticed more issues in StreamYard where it's a web-based app. So if it's
Okay.
web-based, I have more issues than when it's not. So if it's desktop, so like I noticed that because I had like less issues with Ecamm. I have very few issues using Ecamm Live, which was what I used for a long time. And now I'm using OBS, Streamlabs OBS, and I have less issues when it's a desktop based program.
Yeah, I was just curious because like I'm looking at the bandwidth that I'm using right now, and it seems like it goes like it's like the send is up to like 1.2 megabits per second, which is really weird because like when the internet is slow and it's like, oh, you're not getting the say 100 megabits per second or 70 megabits per second, it's like, oh, you're only getting like 10 because of some issue, right? Everything just comes to like a crawl, but like the reality is I'm only using 1.5 to go up anyway, so
yeah, it's weird.
It shouldn't be a like it shouldn't be a thing. Like even
So
down,
one of the reason
so
I noticed my
weird.
internet issues is that I work with clients, so I have to upload and download files, and it became really apparent that I had an issue because like it would take me ages even to just because I just do like one last through Auphonic. It's like a thing that I don't need to do, but I've been doing it for so long that I just do it as that one last tiny thing in my process. Like it's probably at this point kind of a waste of money that I'm doing it because of everything I have, but I've been doing it for so long. I just like there's some like superstition about getting rid of it. And so I would have to when it was even worse than it is now, before we got the extender, I would have to take the computer and bring it next to the door of the main house to be able to upload. And so the internet, like in the extent, it's just I'm not by the house. Like I'm in a separate unit outside where I'm still connected to the house via the garage, but like I'm not in the main house at all.
Right.
So like there's a lot of distance comparatively from me and the main router, and I don't have. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So there's like an entire house wall that separates, and a couple doors, and then like probably like 50, to 100 feet between there from to where I'm at, and so it's not close, and it's an older unit, so I only have like a telephone jack in here. So and one of the conversations I had with my parents where they were like, houses, unless they're newer built, they don't have that. An
Ethernet jack?
They don't have Ethernet.
Yeah.
And most homes don't.
That's only newest, and that's only usually if it's requested and probably paid extra for. Like I
would pay extra for it. From now on, like that's a need for me. And like when I'm looking into new places, because I want to be moving in the next year, it's really ready. I need more space, and I want to be able to solve some of these issues with like newer wiring. Like this place is great, but it'll be 5 years, it'll be 4 years in August, and it's been a perfect space for what I've needed. But like, there's little issues like this where, like, oh, by the way, my internet sucks, or I don't know what's going on with this, or is still something that I'm very conscious of.
Are you positive it's not your cell phone?
My cell phone is off. I've done this with my cell phone off. My cell phone is not even in the same room. It's really from here. The other computer, like I said, is actually like there's no internet on that one either. Yeah. It's off.
So weird that you hear it too. I mean, for me to hear it, it's one thing, but that's just weird. So,
but you're still hearing that. Like I would get that when I was at Guitar Center. People like I'm having this kind of buzz, this kind of sound. Like it's still an electrical issue, whatever it is. If it's internet or whatever. And I've seen it on other things. Like like because this was such a frustrating thing, I'm tired of talking about it. Like to me at this point, it's just knowing like that's how much this has been, where it's just like, let's fix your issue. And I'm like, I've spent months working on this issue and rebuilt the studio, and this is where we've fallen. And people are like, that still seems weird. And I'm like, I know. Like all I know is that of every single beta test I've done with multiple units, with multiple machines, this is where we're falling. And that's frustrating. Yeah. But it's like, okay, well, how can we work around that? So yeah.
Well, at least you have a way to record. without it
Yeah,
being,
yeah. I
you
find
know.
the desktop does tend to be more stable than laptops as far as streaming, but that one is really slow, and so I don't use that as much, and it's not as easily
Mm,
accessible. So, like for me to be like, oh, I'm going to pop on the desktop means I have to log on. It's like a whole other step to get onto that computer. So I use it almost as like a third screen, but it's like a
right.
really low gigabyte machine, and it doesn't have a fast processor. At the time, I was like, yeah, let's get a desktop, and then it was like, oh, I hadn't thought about like the power that you want to have on a machine. But it does, I do find that desktops tend to be more stable and I have less issues with
Mm,
like the internet or even the speed stuff. I don't know why. Don't have any clue why. But
mm.
consistently my laptops have not performed as well as my desktop when it comes to things like streaming.
I mean, probably because for the money, like it, you know, and that's a whole conference, it's a whole rabbit hole.
I
But yeah,
oh totally, yeah.
right. Like it's harder to me. It's harder to justify. I mean, I'm using a very powerful desktop right now, right, and all
Yeah.
that. But I build them myself and all that. So to
Yeah.
justify the cost when you're looking at like, oh, I can get a laptop and it has the screen, it has the microphone, it has everything built into it, right? Like it's all right
Right.
there, and it's the $1,000 versus like, okay, I can build a tower, and then I still don't have a monitor, I still don't have a keyboard, I still don't have a mouse, I still don't have headphones, I don't have any speakers to go with it, I have nothing to use it. Like I literally can't use it unless I
Right.
buy all these other things or make sure I have access to get those other things. It's just a harder sell than, you know, than like say, oh, I could spend like $300 on a desktop. Like, is it more powerful? Yeah, it's probably more powerful than like this MacBook Air because this is like a 10-watt chip versus like
Oh
a
yeah,
60
totally.
watt chip. But and that's really the basics of, you know, like
The basics of the
power.
basics. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like of TDP wattage, but yeah, like thermal dynamics. But
Or even
anyway,
just like the sound of like the laptop hum I have on this because there's a lot of power in it, but it like
mm,
still hums. So there's like
yeah,
a
yeah,
little bit
yeah.
of sound, like
Well, that's one
from
of the
a
differences
recording
too.
trans. Yeah,
Is with the
the
desktop you
cool
can get
down.
different fans. You can get more silent fans and things of that
Yeah, yeah,
installed. So it just depends. You know, that's a up to the person to decide what they're
yeah.
doing. But then again, it's all
It
more
does hit this
money.
point where right now I'm like, do I do more beta testing? Do I figure it out? And I'm like, don't drive yourself in crazy
If you're
right now. And
leaving
I
in a
think
year,
because
then
like
probably not.
yeah, yeah, and that's sort of where we were at because it was like I did the rewiring, I organized the space, like finished all the projects with it, and now it's like I love tech, so I could just spend all my time here. But at a certain point, that quits allowing the growth, the other
Yeah.
growth, like the
Hmm.
parts that are getting that it's one of those things where it's like okay, like is this really helping anyone? And I think I would justify that and just being like, well, I'm solving it for someone else. Like if I know, then someone else knows. But then it was sort of like, but are they?
Well, they have to actually care. Like, just like the next person that
Yeah.
moves in there isn't necessarily going to be trying to live
I mean,
stream to the world.
online. I mean, like to my audience, to the people who
Oh,
are part of this. And
oh.
I feel like there's going to be a day where it gets solved, and we're just going to be like, finally. But like that is my main priority. It became something that I had to sort of allow not to get frustrated with, and
Yeah.
I'm still frustrated obviously. Like I'm definitely fighting back like Joe, but I do
No, no,
think
no.
it became something where I like didn't even want to stream for a little while because of it. I was embarrassed, it was
Mm,
frustrating, and it was like, well, screw that. Like I'm not gonna, I need to move forward and figure out what that means and how I can do that and where I can let that go and how I can get better at cutting things and just sort of having those expectations for streaming. And so like at the beginning of the feed, I'll even like write it in the notes being like, you might hear some static buzz that's from my internet. You know what I mean? Like just that people are, hello, Larry, just that people have an expectation of it. Cause I would just get constant comments on it, which was one of the things that like brought away from things.
yeah.
And I was, and it just kind of like allowed me to get stuck in this loop of only working on that and no longer focusing on the larger things I wanted to work on for
Yeah.
podcasting and for my clients and for myself. And I think we have to remember not to get stuck in that loop, even if it's something that like we can't seem to quite dial in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I'm still working on that one.
No, I Well, and I know it pains both of us because we're both tech heads. So like,
yeah, I know. That's why we're
a
bringing it up.
solution. Like, where's the solution? And I'm not trying to drag up old things, but I know I obviously it sucks. It sucks for you because you're hearing it too. So it's not.
Oh, it drives me crazy. Like the last thing I enjoy is sometimes being like, "Excuse me," while I hear this buzz in my damn ear.
So all right. So I'm gonna pull up your site here. So you had the last time you put out a podcast episode was in
one thing I'd like to figure out.
Yeah.
It was back in January. So the show is actually like my podcasting efforts are like a whole other story because it's been narrative. I was with the radio station for a long time. This show does not it takes a ton of work to produce, and I have a ton of backlogged interviews. And it's just, it's my work has shifted so much. So like, there's been moments where I'm like, I'm going to bring the show back and then I'll get an upflurry of clients or I'll get a new launch or like things get pushed another way. And because this is like what I do for my living, then the show gets put off. The station's been patient, but at this point I'm kind of more like an associate rather than like necessarily producer at X-Ray. And we are still trying to find ways to get me in the loop, but without being a paid producer, to do that much work for them is really challenging. And that's sort of where, while I'm looking at a new show. So the last big thing I did was with RME. And this was because I'm still, like I said, websites are kind of not my thing. Creating these like sort of, it was a lot of work to create these like website things. So I have 3 days of that, but like updating that every day was kind of a pain. And I don't know how, because web design is not my thing at all. Like to have a site that just is like a blog post style that automatically goes to a page like this. This is using Mail Munch and using a landing page site. Like this is me just trying to find a solution to that. So it's hardly ideal. And it's a lot of work to create this. This is not a fast thing to make. So I would look at how people do that. And one of my goals is to, have someone who comes on in web, but it's like, because I still have limited funding, it's just not where I can put much into right now. So I'm making the best of what I have with my website right now.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously it doesn't look bad. I would say that the biggest thing would be the like to get it to be easier for you to update, right? Because
I need to hire someone. Like I said, I don't have the funding for that, and I've gone through like looking into funding cycles, and it's not an option for me right now. So I'm making the best of what I have. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because like I've used Mail Munch like once or twice.
It works for landing pages. It's just like
I don't think I've ever actually used it for landing pages. I think I just used it as like a pop up to like email captures. I don't even think at the time while I was using it that they had. I mean, everybody's in
they do totally
now.
Yeah. I need to get mine updated.
MailChimp to everybody. Larry Roberts says it's interesting. I made a bigger impact during the last few months when I didn't even release an episode.
I still get a consistent back following of my shows. Some months are more than others, but people do listen back to the beginning episodes, like once it's up. So I don't push my show that much. I really don't push my podcast that much. I mean, I would definitely like to have more things going forward. I have a lot of updating to do, but yeah.
I mean, what kind of issues or what kind of things would help if you could automate them to help you get because you were saying you were looking at putting out a whole new show, like a whole nother show.
Yeah.
You want to tell me about that?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going through. So I work with a lot of other shows. Like at this point, like a lot of what I do is help support other people, and we go through all this stuff, and then I connect them to people who can do it better. And we, at least as far as like things like web places that are like my super strength, like I'm like, this is what it looks like. These are what we need. And, I'm the hard ass being like, hey, we need to be taking care of these elements. Like even my current clients, it's like, even if they're like, I do consults, like I'll just be like, hey, I can't find your website. I let them know, we go through and do this and make sure that things are where we want them to be. And, that's a lot of it. But when I have a full launch course that I do that's like mapped out, like down to the like the tiniest elements that I developed since I started doing my last couple clients and my last couple launches, and where I'm going through that myself with my show and kind of looking at goal planners and sort of figuring out what I need to do to make that possible. Mm-hmm. And it's been a fun process to go through my own systems to like kind of explore like what I want that name to be, how I want it to be more effective. Because it's really easy, I think, to say, oh, I'm just going to do something. And I love that concept of like, just get it out. And that was really fun about that 9-week series. That was what was so cool about it. But it also meant that toward an end of it was becoming more reactive. And there's room for that in your shows for like people have a call for something. But then all of a sudden it like hit a point where I couldn't plan ahead enough. And it was just so much work just doing the workshop. So it, like finding a model that still engage the community, that still brings up, that has like a flow. And one of the things I recommend to clients is like, having kind of varied content, like if you have these expectations, especially if you're running a community or running like an organization like you do, right? Like it's every day is not like putting Jeni on the hot seat where I'm feeling like so uncomfortable. But that uncomfort is because like I feel really crappy about my website, and it feels frustrating to spend, and then my audio, and it's just like these aren't like new to me, and so it's just kind of frustrating to be like, okay, like yeah, I'm aware of this and I'm putting time into it, and like it's embarrassing, but like but that's some of why it feels so real, right? Is because like because I do, I really want it. I want it to be better. So it's sort of like check your frustration at the door, but you're gonna feel it. You're still gonna feel that frustration. That's not gonna go away. And the realities versus the impact versus it's deep breaths. Yeah. So like I'm setting up, like I get defensive. Like that's sort of like my go-to. So I'm like, but my website, I'm trying, but I did the audio.
Well, it doesn't, I mean, it's not, again, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I think that the one thing that would probably help the most is if you were able to at least update it quickly, like more quickly than I'm not sure how the Mail Munch. I
have this. Does anyone else have like just a running list of things they would give to an assistant? Like I just have like a list of like, because I think about like if people can help, because I'm a person who like wants to solve it myself, and that's just like part of my familyness and who I am as Bruce's daughter and is like Harold's this like these built-in things, and so I don't often let like things just let go. You know what I mean? Like it's like I want to be like I'll solve it, and or so I'm learning how to like outsource and how to let some of those things go. And one of my goals is to be able to have someone who comes on for other roles and to be able to trust them. But like, it's hard to do that when you don't quite know how to do it. But one of them is 100% like having somebody who knows web, who can kind of like start making these tweaks. Cause like for me, I'll spend tons of time, but it's so much slower for me to do. And then it's like, I look at what I have to try to make it work as a landing page for my business, and make it as close to what I see in other people's things that exist. Cause it used to be so much worse. Like I'm really actually proud of where we've gotten, and I've learned a lot about like a lot of the elements of it, but it has so far to go. Yeah. Larry, I unfortunately am still single, and my last boyfriend, he wasn't down to be a VA. So I think I'm going to have to keep searching on that one.
Larry, you're lucky. You're very lucky.
Like sometimes I'm so jealous of people who like have a partner that's there. But like I think that you can always, coming back to that like projection end of it, like you can always have something that you're like, but they have that. And that's like, okay, well, what does it look like to get there? And that's where the goal setting kind of sets. And that's sort of where I don't know. Why I haven't quite announced what the new show is, because I'm trying to figure out in my head what it is, because I want to have that like real clear messaging. And I would love to be like, I'm going to do it in a month. And then I'm like, but what if we did a full 90 days? Or what if we did 60? And what if we really looked at every single element, just like I do with a launch client, and had that bring back to a community? Because I want it to not just be, I have a new show. I want it to be, I have a show and I have the community and I have the Patreon and I have the like the Slack community. And then I have like people who are like specific subscribers. And then I have my clients that are a part of that as long as with courses. And that's a lot, right? So then you're sort of saying like, oh, that is closer to 90 days, right?
to launch it in 90 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then
you're still running your business too, right?
I am still running my business. Yeah. And like right now I have like 5 clients that are like always solid. I've got 2 launches I'm still working on, and I've got other, speaking stuff. I've got my surgery in 2 weeks. I've got family coming out like sometime in the next couple months. So it's just like trying to figure out how to balance everything and while still, being a tech nerd and still quietly trying to solve these issues without driving myself crazy. So, but I think finding, it's at some point, if someone gave me $2,000, the first thing I would do is be like, fix my website. Like literally that would be like a number one for me.
Well, I mean, was one of the things that I'm seeing. Let's see, is I would say from the messaging standpoint of like so that's about your business, right?
Everything's about my business. I'm not pushing my podcast at all.
Oh, okay.
I don't promote my podcast whatsoever. I promote other people's podcasts. My show, I don't push that. And I used to. I mean, like my goals of the show where it was 5 years ago when it started versus like where it is now are very different. And even just, I was a working musician when I started the show. And like I was someone who was going through like some pretty heavy trauma and not knowing how to deal with it and needing to be off stage and not telling anyone about that. So it was like a need for me to be like, what can I do to figure out how to be back on stage while going through panic attacks on like a major event? You know what I mean? And that was like where it came from. So I was able, because I was really connected to the music community, to ask these questions, to interview these folks. And then I was able to be brought on to the radio stations where I was trained in narrative, where a lot of these other things were accessible to me. And I wrote for the papers here and I wrote for national publications. And that was the foundation of where Gritty Birds was. But I wasn't getting paid for any of it. And that was really, really, really hard. I wasn't making any money. I was, I had PTSD. I was like having panic attacks. I was, disassociating. I was in a really bad place and trying to keep it forward because like no one wants to see someone falling apart. And I was lucky enough to get people who like kind of helped me get there. But then what that led to was the podcast. It never came back. I've still recorded interviews. I've done other things, but like I would get invited to a festival and like I would like bring on an assistant and they would just run off and go party the whole time. Or it got really, I'm not kidding. That happened. It happened more than once. And it was really frustrating. Helpful. Yeah, super helpful. And then they were like, why don't we have a turnaround yet? But like I had to like, immediately return to work because even taking a week off, I was sleeping on floors to be able to cover some of these events. I was getting grants to be able to do those, but I was burnt out. I was like in a way that like isn't just like I'm burnt out, but like it was when I went to Guitar Center, I thought I could be able to continue doing it, but that is a really tough job. And working there like really took out any creative juice that I had. So it was really fun. Yeah, it's a very, very real thing with anyone who's worked at Guitar Center. Like anyone, it takes away any drive because like I was working there from 11 to 7 every day and I fought for those hours but then like other coworkers, like it wasn't their idea that I would have those hours. They wanted me to close. Or I worked every Sunday, like you never had a break. I never went to shows. I quit. Like I got isolated from a lot of my communities. But I also spent a lot of time like kind of figuring out like what I wanted to do. And I loved being in tech. And like that was very, very clear. But it was also, I felt embarrassed. The podcasting wasn't happening. And then, because so many things shifted, because like I no longer was tied to music, it really made a difference. So I'm still tied to the audio tech world and I'm still tied to the music community, but not in the way that I was 3 years ago, not even remotely. And I miss that a lot. but it's also just like, okay, well, where are we now? And so I became more and more activated working with podcasters because like I had, all these tools of like what I did to be able, because my show was like while I never had like major numbers, like people really respected it. Like I would get people out of like nowhere who were just like, oh dude, I know your show. I know what you do. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thank you. And that was something that I loved. They might have heard on the radio or like I had people like just from like not even in our community that I would go to a conference and be like, especially in music, that would know about it. And I'd get tons of requests, but I needed to make a shift. And it's never shifted back to the show because I don't have the same passion that I had 5 years ago for the music side. And rebranding is a really challenging thing. So I really changed the brand of Gritty Birds to be about the company and not about the music podcast, which I think confuses some folks. But like I put so much effort into building the brand that it didn't make sense to me to build a new brand. And at some point, that is something I am interested in doing. But like for where we are, like I already had the website, I already had the emails, I already had the contacts, I had the Facebook group, I had all of that. So because I already had the platform, it made sense to just build it as Gritty Birds Podcasting. So I took business classes and, I left Guitar Center and kind of, we've made those moves, which has been really interesting. And, I would say I would do some things differently for sure. Absolutely. But, that's kind of the weird journey of Gritty Birds is like, it's just shifted so much. Like, yeah.
Are you with your new show? Obviously, you don't want to talk too much
about it. Obviously, it's a podcast about creating media. Like,
okay, so it's to support your bit, in support of your.
Yeah, it's going to be a business support that's very delineated from Gritty Birds, so that if I want to head back and because I want to keep Gritty Birds as a music podcast, I've thought about it. I've been like, do you make it a podcasting one? Like, no, that just doesn't make any sense at all. And I do still want to figure out how to do Gritty Birds in the way. I just don't know that I want it to be narrative anymore. And I loved that it was, but I put so much like pressure on myself to create a narrative show that was Alexa, stop. Yeah, same. I did it for years. And I think that I learned so much from it, but it's so much work and it's so much time and there's very little reward if it was just me alone. I had some team like thanks to the station, but it can be really isolating. And I quit having the passion for it. Like, and I think that you need, when you're podcasting, this is sort of when we talk about burnout, it needs to be something you're excited about. And if that takes a minute for you to figure out what that is, you hear about people be like, I've held it off for 3 years. Like, why don't you just put it out? But if you can't have something that really, you're just like, this is it, that you're going to go back every week. And that's sort of why I'm like going to have it a seasonal approach. I'm thinking 12 episodes and a month off and then another season, like not a long break, just like, but each season sort of like is a cohesive unit. So using what I had from narrative, right. And saying like, where we're doing like a deep dive into someone's show. So we're looking into their show notes. We're listening to an episode. We're saying like, here's the rough skinny, where there are guests, where there is a streaming element that is outside even recording, maybe recording it, but that it's not the main bulk of the show, where there is a YouTube presence. There's, where there's just a few of those little elements so that it is hitting all those media. And that's kind of the idea. And, some solo, a little bit of workshop, but nothing that's just like every week I'm creating a workshop. Like that was a lot. It's hard to do every week.
Yeah.
when you have other stuff to do. But it was really great because it was an exercise in my brain about like when you pitch to conferences, right? You're like, what are you going to pitch on? What do you know? And then you're like, what? Like, think about what you really do know. Like make a huge brainstorm list because like you might just be like, oh, I can only speak to these 3 things. I bet that's not true. Like, what and how can you kind of change some of those ones that you were like, oh, I didn't even think that I had that in my head, and that's sort of where I think that was so positive, is because it forced me to think about like areas that I could expand on that I hadn't thought of before.
No,
so
I think that's a great. I think it's great that you're looking at the idea that to expand your your business through the marketing efforts of a new show
Yeah.
and focusing it in there so that you're not like so if you're spending 2-3 hours to create a bunch of content for it, you're not. It's not like well this is for my passion like it's my hobby and it's
Yeah.
like you're doing it because it's already your passion and your hobby
Yeah.
and it's hopefully putting some
It's
money
my
in your
profession.
pocket, bringing clients
Because
to you
because
and
where I
that's
want to scale this business in a big way, and I think that
mm,
that's still been my goal. And it's because I got so many narrative pushes. It's really hard when you lose a narrative client because all of a sudden you lose 1,500 in 1 month and you don't gain them right back. And that was
yeah.
a lesson that was so frustrating because I love working on more complicated, deeper shows. And so I had, that was what happened back in January, and that was,
Mm.
and I picked up another show that was a really cool project. That was like a dream project, and I ended up not following through on that because I just didn't have it in me. And so I built, some of these smaller chunked shows. And like, well, it feels frustrating because I'm like, oh, I could use a push or, I've done so much consulting, and I would say, besides May, like I was, bringing in a pretty good consulting amount for a while. And I think some of it really had to do with those shows, like that I was there every week and because I was at the conferences. But when I wasn't posting those in a intentional way, what I mean? Not just like posting it, but like an
Yeah,
intentional
yeah.
posting. And that's the same with like the website. And this is sort of one of the things is I want to make sure that when I'm posting it, that there's always a new website added, that there's always a new post added. And that's
Mhm.
something that's been delayed. It's just like all of a sudden, and that's always been the case for me is like, how can I simplify it so that it comes out right away? How do you keep the funnel going? What does that look like in the whole scheme of things? What does that look like with clients? And, at what point can it scale enough? Because it brings back the return 100%. Like, because people are like, oh, I
Absolutely.
saw your thing. I want to do a consult with you. But like, if you're not putting that media out there, you're immediately taking yourself out of the equation in a way. Not just going on people's shows because that's other people's audience. And yeah, you're getting to know them. But like having your own to say, like, come back here. You can check this out. This is great. Whether, you have no views on YouTube or not, I think the lesson I really gathered from like that experience, both in November and from this, because I've been playing with experiments. So in November, I tried to do Podpomo, and 30 days of
Mm.
podcast is a lot. So I made it to 1 week, which was great. So a lot of those are from there. I've taken some of them down. And then I did the RME feature when I was at NAM. And that was really fun and went really well. And then started this next series. So, but what I learned from all those is I'm like, there's just a point where I kind of get like over it, right? And so like stepping forward, I'm like, well, how can we solve those problems? Like, what can it look like so that everything always hits these points and that I still have that pause to be able to like recoup. So my goal is really launching it in September. So like while I say 3 months, that third month is really starting to ease into it. And then the courses come toward November, heading into Black Friday. So that like October, when I start hitting conferences again, that they're there. If I'm in person, I'm saying this is what we're doing right now. And then, stepping into that next piece and like figuring out like what all this looks like, because I think you have to rip apart. Yeah. Like, like I feel uncomfortable with the website, but like, I think it's key to just put that on the goals list and say, okay, you've gone as far as you can and you still get the same critique. If you're doing the same thing, you're getting the same response, like figure it out. And, and same with the issue with this like feed thing. I don't know what's going on. It's frustrating, but I'm probably still going to be tweaking little things to see what I can do. And I like the idea of the dimmer switch because I've got this on the thing and I don't quite know what to do with that, but
usually
it's
the
worth
dimmer switch
looking at.
it's a consistent like when we put the overhead lights in here, like as soon as we put them in and I was still plugged into the same like breaker,
Yeah.
it was immediate. Like I could hear it right in the
Like
mic.
it
When I
could
used to be in
even,
my old studio across the other side of the house, like
yeah.
that had a dimmer switch in it too, and I would use ground loops, like RCA ground loops, to get rid
Yeah.
of that buzz. I tried
Yeah.
an XLR buzz ground loop for the microphone, but it didn't do jack. It didn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, like right now my light is off. Like I have a
Well, I've only heard
Chauvet
it buzz
and
like twice since
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
since
Like
all
it
of a
hits
sudden,
these
all of a sudden it
points
just
where
like
there isn't as much.
magically
So,
went
like it'll
away.
have like pieces and then it'll pop back up, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Which is
So-
so much harder to figure out than like if it was just a constant. But like to me, I'd rather
Right.
it just be constant buzzing because like I know if I get it to be a higher pitch or I can change it in some way, then that means I'm getting in the area of fixing it. But when you
Yeah.
get the same like no result and then all of a sudden a result, and it's hard to figure out like you've literally just been sitting there. So
it drives me crazy. So
yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be interesting when I'm able to be in other locations and to see to be able to try some of these out using the same gear, but somewhere else. And that's one of the next steps for me and like trying to figure this out. But being in the same house, it's definitely not something I can like super solve because I'm like, this is one location I'm allowed to be at. You know what I mean?
You're hooked up to a power conditioner, so like that should solve any
yeah.
like inconsistent.
I might get a second one. I need to drop back and see the boys over at GC, and I might get a second one because I have just a basic one on the floor, but maybe I need a second one for everything else. I don't know. I don't have that answer yet.
I don't know.
But one day it's gonna be like, hey, guess what? Guess what I haven't had in a month. You know what I mean? Like my friend Jay, he's a really good bud. I met him in February through Marion Abrams, and he's like one of my other also like tech nerd friends. And we spent weeks. I finally had to be like, Jay, stop bringing it up, like because we would be up like late texting. We tried everything, like. He's James Altrucher's engineer. So like we were just going to town for weeks trying to be like, okay, what can we do? What can we solve it? And then he's the one who also like brought up a lot of suggestions as I was networking the different computers, and that was really great. But it was kind of yeah.
So I mean, the thing I would look at as far as your website, stuff going forward, like because you don't have the grant, that unless you find somebody that can do it for you,
but all it takes is all of a sudden I get one more client, or like I get two more clients, and then the funding's there. That's the cool thing about some of this work, and is just like building things so that all of a sudden you bring on a like something, and then you're not tight.
Right.
I don't know how else to put it, and even right now, just where it was versus 3 months ago.
But even having somebody else do it, I would advise finding somebody who can simplify it so that if you can't
that's what I want
to have them, at least it's simple enough for you to just go in, add new post, and
that's what I want from a web designer. I want someone who can go through, see the bones that I have, see the intention of where we're at, and then like keep the messaging, and then be able to have some of those, because WordPress isn't necessarily the easiest. And when I meet so many people, but because I've had it for so long, it's like it's hard to just be like, I'm gonna move to something else. I think
recommend
my ideal
moving to somewhere.
But I would say my ideal web designer would be someone who like sets it up and then like shows me how to use it like really easily, and that would sort of say like, hey, and that I give certain, because I've noticed this also, like with new podcasters and people I've done launches with, is a lot of web designers don't understand the need for a podcast landing page or for a media page. And not all web designers have the ability to really understand the embedding that needs to exist.
Part of
so like I can sit there and say my website's crap. I don't know how to fix it, but I know what a website that I like looks like.
Yeah.
But I'll send that to somebody through a client, and they'll be like, we don't understand what that is. And I'm like, hey client, you might want to talk to another person. And it's hard to say that because usually it's a friend or, something like that. And that's sort of one of the things where when I put up, because I've done this like every 6 months, I've been like, I need to be up. I'm looking at website designers, and like a couple really good friends will post. And like, I love those really great friends, but I don't actually want them to be my web developer, because I want someone I don't know who's so good at this specific end of it that like, I'm not afraid to tell them exactly what I want. Cause I can be I want to be that hard boss. And I like to approach that with people. I'm like, I'm going to tell you things you're not going to like. I'm going to be frustrated at times, but like a lot of it is because I want it to get here. And I don't want to do that. I don't want that with a friend, you know?
Well, so then it sounds like I'm not applying for that job.
No, but you've already like given me the what for. So
no, but
Alexa, stop.
I mean, you know, I'm a web designer as well, too, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. I've been doing websites since '96.
Maybe you would be able to help me. It's just
I know I could. It's just a matter of the time and all that to do it.
You're busy with everything too. I mean, that's so much of it is like there's this phase, and like I've had a conversation, you know, even as like because my load has shifted so much because I've been dealing with health problems. Like it's been a whole other situation because like I mean there's been days where I've just been like so sick. I had to move an interview this week because I was really sick on Monday. When I got the call from the doctor, no, I mean it's just been continued. I was sick at Podfest. You know, I was on the floor in writhing agony one of the nights, and it was terrible. And that's just part of my experience, and it sucks. So like I'm stoked to have surgery in a couple weeks, but it's really challenging when you're running a business and at least 2 to 3 nights a month you are dealing with trying to recover from getting sick, right? And so it's like exciting to hit this next stage of being able to get there. And I only bring that up because it's sort of like we all have these other elements that like bring our energy where they are, and it's exciting to sort of look, Joe, this is going to sting a bit. What's Larry saying? He isn't writing. Larry, what is it? Change the subject. We don't want to hear about my health issues.
It might have been a joke. It might have been a joke.
Well, it's just right now because it's 2:10, so he just read it. Yeah. It was probably maybe it was referenced like
been the joke.
That was okay. Yeah.
Like,
but I mean it's just God, I'm slow. But I would say that's the thing. It's like figuring out for me, I'm really excited about like kind of looking at things differently and hoping that maybe being less afraid, figuring out like what money really looks like, not being afraid of really making that point, making a budget that's real, that really addresses needs. Mm-hmm. As opposed to like what needs. Where we came up with this, it's friends reach out. That was what it was. So like I'll have people who reach out and they want help, but it's like I don't know that I'm the right fit, or I really want to work with their show and the timing's not right, because I don't want to bring on something and then be like all of a sudden I'm just scurrying around, like no one wants that because it's not helpful, especially if it's someone that
Yeah, definitely. Well, so I think you have a lot to think about. Obviously, you definitely have.
I need to make my website better.
I'm sorry.
I need to make my website better.
Well, it's just look, it's not bad. It's there's just it needs to be
we
easier
can't
for
find
you to
it.
update. Like that's the other RX right there, right? The other prescription is not only do you need to call GoDaddy and find out why you're not HTTPS is not set. But you when you find somebody that can help you with your website, that you can bully them around and like beat them up, like a punching bag.
A little bit. I won't lie. I am sort of like, why isn't this solved? Why isn't this solved? Like my last web person, like he was great. But it didn't it was like I was trying to solve certain issues and he couldn't do it. And so it was frustrating because I didn't want to fire him. He was a friend. And he does great work on other things. Like I'm really proud of the stuff he does, but it did hit a point where it was like, it felt like I just was, I needed something else. So I'm trying to find that good fit because I don't want to bully anyone. That's not really what it's about. It's sort of just being like, I think it's the follow through when you're working with friends that gets lost sometimes. Because you give a lot of extra like, oh, no worries. And trying to get that, like, I still actually have this is a goal. I'm paying you money. Let's figure out what it looks like. I do want to have a friendly relationship with my web developer because that web developer is like so huge, for sure. Yeah. I just don't want to be afraid to say, hey, we're like a month later and I haven't seen anything. Because I do hear that a lot from friends who've hired web developers. Like that I've heard that way too many times. And I think there's this fear in moving to some of these next things because you're like, but it might go bad. But you have to, I have to get over that. I was going to say, but you have to get over that, as I haven't.
Well, and like I said, so finding somebody who's not only willing to set up a site, but set up a site that you can go and maintain going forward if need be, and it's simple. Because like a lot of times, like these web developers, and I know because I'm a web developer too, but
yeah,
we get inside of our own heads and we come up with these complicated solutions that's like, hey, we know how to do it because it's not a big deal to us. But like if I had to explain it to somebody else, like. It's, it's one thing for me to explain it to you today, but then to ask you like, okay, now we're gonna have a pop quiz 6 weeks from now. How do you do this? I don't know. I mean, we sat down, we talked about it. I got some notes. I'd have to really sit down and like, put the hip bone to the leg bone and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
You can't just like, I know how to do it like right there off the top of my head. Because like, and the other thing is like web developers, they all speak their own languages, right? Like they all have their own plugins that they use for work, especially for WordPress. They all have their own code, that they prefer to go to, coding languages that they'll use. Like they all do their own thing. It's not a black and white kind of like, oh, it's this, like it's off and then all of a sudden it's on and there's no in between. It's very gray area all over the place. And people, and the other thing is when you get a website built, like your website today, it might be using some of the best plugins that are available today, but then like 6 months to 2 years from now, like everything's completely changed. Like when I worked at HopeWorks, and I was their web director, so I worked on a lot of websites that hadn't been updated in a long, long time. The way that you used to build websites on WordPress is not how you do it anymore.
I have an update issue actually right now. I can't figure out, and I don't know what to do because I've tried for like a year to get the Puppet. There was a point where it was actually not even going to grittybirds.com. It was going to pup.upload.com. And I'm like, what the frick? And that was super frustrating. And we were able to solve that. So like, it's like I've hit, web. At least now goes to grittybirds.com and I can have a link there, but we still can't find it on the internet. So
and that would be quite helpful. So like I said, give GoDaddy a call, get them to do that, and
okay.
And I think that would help you at least on this end of it, and go at least on this end, going forward, right? Because you're gonna get a new website for your new endeavor. For your new
maybe I mean I really think it should just go to Gritty Birds. I think it should just be a tab because I might have a redirect. Like I do think about adding more redirects, but I don't know that having a full website for a new show when I book clients at Gritty Birds would make sense. I think at some point I might change the company, but like that's not in a next year plan. That's probably in a 5-year plan. Like thinking differently, but no, I would say I would do a redirect. Like I would own the web to whatever page that was. So that they can click through, but I would still say I still want it to redirect to a page where they can go ahead and book a consult. Ideally, I think that would make sense marketing wise.
Is that and Gritty Birds is the name of the company or
Gritty Birds Podcasting is the name of my company. So like I really should own Gritty Birds Podcasting. I should,
Probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Don't go. Nobody.
If anyone wants to give me some money. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Don't give me money. Hire me. Just hire me. I'm a great producer and looking to scale my company. So if you see friends out there who are looking for editors, I've got several shows on, but I'm going to be taking on more as soon as the surgery is done. If you're looking for launches, I really am stoked about whoever comes on next because of the fact that I built all this infrastructure and now it's just sitting there waiting. I had like 6 launches in a period of a really short time, and now it's like slowed down a little bit, which is why it's so key for me to get back out there, like sharing my message on my networks itself, while also making sure that they're posting to the web and it's not taking away from my client load. It's like an addition to it and not just being like, hey guys, like that was the other problem with Fridays in the afternoon is I realized that Friday afternoons were terrible because clients needed stuff. And I really couldn't be just preparing for a show on a Friday and doing a workshop. That was actually probably the number one reason why that slowed down is because it was very, very apparent that I still needed to finish work on a Friday.
Did the workshops help bring any clients to you?
That's the thing. Yeah, I had consulting. It was really, really positive for consulting. I got a lot of consulting work, and I'd been consistently getting consulting work before. So that was really positive because people were like, hey, can you help deeper with this, especially with the tech side of things? And that was really great. So I want to be able to continue on that end of it and sort of like expand like my knowledge, talk to people I've never thought to speak of before. Because I had people like reaching out, be like, I want to be on your show. And I'm like, but it's mostly tech based. I'm like, but what's your audience? Because while most of the dudes who follow me are dudes, the people who hire me are women. Like 100%. Men don't hire me at all. It doesn't happen. I like to say that wasn't true, but like it's in my 5 years, I rarely get hired by a male to produce this podcast or to edit it. It just doesn't happen. Which is weird because like most of my followers, like the people who comment and are actively engaged are men. The people who like invest in me are women, which is like, it's just a fact. It's just like when I look at analytics and stuff, it's really interesting. So, but I think it's because those community, I'd say it's because like the communities feel like comfortable and it's somewhere that I am able to do that. And I'm building up more of that to try to create more space for women. But yeah, it's I have a community of it never happens.
Well, at least so you can
like pretty much 100%. I'm trying to like even think of anyone who's even booked a free consult that's a male in the last 2 years, and there's literally not one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird. I've had a few that were trying to get me to be a part of work they're already doing. Like that has happened. So it's not like no communication. And I've definitely been on a lot of like, male friend shows, and I probably communicate more with guys like in a day-to-day basis. Often just because like being from that tech side and just the communication we have around stuff, like that's pretty common for me. But it's definitely interesting when you think about messaging and what that looks like. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, again, knowing is more than half the battle in that case.
Knowing is more than half the battle.
Who to do, who to message to, and all.
Yeah, totally.
So,
which is weird.
That definitely be that could be a topic we could talk about on another episode.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating because like I would love to hear other people's perspective on that too. Just because like I've always felt really comfortable in like around guys like in general, just with interest based and stuff. And so it's definitely like kind of funny. Like I would, it's interesting as I get older, learning about myself.
Well,
so.
It definitely is one of those things that you kind of see, you see how it goes. Like you don't know, like you can set your avatar for any, like whether it's for a business or a podcast or anything, but you won't know who's actually going to resonate with it, and then who's actually going to spend the money
to buy. Because it's the buy-in, it's so huge.
Clients, yeah. So I mean, that's definitely a topic we will talk about on another episode. At this point, I think
we could talk for like an hour and a half.
Yes, we have. So, and I need to go eat dinner.
I haven't eaten either. Yeah.
Oh,
I slept. I didn't wake up till noon because I couldn't sleep last night. So if like, no, I've just been excited and I have all these ideas. So like, I was literally writing on the whiteboard. I'm like, well, if I'm awake, I might as well. And so I was like, if I'm gonna if I'm gonna fall asleep at 5, I'm gonna make sure I get enough sleep. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not like, oh, I'll sleep for 4 and be like out of it. I'm like, well, it's okay. I can start my day at noon. Like like, it's not ideal, but it's fine because at least I can do that. Like nobody is like being like, where are you at 9 a.m.? Like I can handle that, even though it did mean that I forgot to log on, but Thanks, Joe.
It's all good.
I'm excited for Saturday. That's going to be fun.
It definitely will be fun.
Yeah.
You should totally join us at indiepodcasters.com/virtual for podcasting for beginners. We have over 20 people, 20 guest experts speaking.
Great lineup.
Yeah, right? This one's really come together. Everybody seems to want to
People were so stoked about this one.
Yeah, so on the podcast,
like, I can do that.
Yes, like yeah. So like we have so many, and I still had people as of like 2 days ago, reaching out saying, "Hey, do you have any more spots? I would love to be a part." And I'm like, at this point, I can't go 2 days. This is it. This is what we got.
Like,
So
one.
I can't.
We're going
no
here.
more time, and I can't keep cutting back. As it is, speakers will be speaking for 18 minutes this time, not 20.
Yes. Yeah.
Which sucks, but it just is what it is because I want to get as many people in as I possibly can to pack them all in. So the other thing is this episode is brought to you by Indie Pod University. You should go check it out, indiepoduniversity.com, if you need some podcasting resources. Jeni, how can everybody get in touch with you?
You can go to my website you can't find.
Grittybirds.com.
Grittybirds.com. Yeah, you can find me at contact. So grittybirds. And then it's at Gritty Birds for Instagram and all those. Yeah. I think it's gonna be a really big year for me as far as like getting some of these systems, getting web, getting my Instagram like actually functioning, spending a lot of time like looking at programs to sort of have my reach be apparent. Cause I think I'll experiment with something and then I'll pause. And so like one of my goals has always been more consistency with the show. Like every year I'm like January 1st, like more consistency for Gritty Birds. This has been going on for 4 years, and I've had years where it's really consistent and, having like, I just love my clients right now. They're so great. And having them on my team and like I've loved doing my workshops, the more intensive ones too. And that's really changed the community because it's like, there's people that I'm having a feedback loop with. And that's made me think like, I want more people, like they're getting so much out of like, how can I use the things that I'm doing and get better at it? Because the cool part is that people are already doing it. Like I'm not inventing a wheel here. Like it exists. So yes. I can get better at it. And I think it's going to be fun to like see what a year from now is like with my amazing website.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. I will be back tomorrow for Figure It Out Friday. I don't know what time that Figure Out Friday is going to be.
I'll be on Business Bros tomorrow at 1 if you want to see me again too.
Woo!
But yeah. Excited to talk to them.
It's all good. It's all good. It'll probably be maybe in the afternoon. I don't know. Probably in the afternoon, like either 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon here in the Indie Pod group and on Indie Pod independent podcaster Facebook page, conference page. I don't know. There's so many names. It's whatever. You can catch us on the Facebook page or in the group. You should totally go check out the group, indiepodcasters.com/group. I love the new Indie Podcasters, rather indiepodcon.com, because it just doesn't come off as great. Anyway, I hope you all have a great night. Stay safe.
Go have dinner.
And I will see you all tomorrow for Figure Out Friday. Bring your questions. Q&A. It's all free. It's all happening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this topic. And on Saturday, we do Scholarship Saturday. So we'll be talking about a topic for newbie podcasters. In this week, we'll be talking about why we are both wearing headphones in this case. Because if you don't know, then you don't know. So let's talk about that. Right? Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Have a great night, and I will see you tomorrow for Figure It Out Friday.
Yeah.